Well, welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. It is a gloriously early Friday morning over here from a very dark Helsinki, Finland. As always, want to wish you the best before we get to this one. And Bitcoin having some nice moves in the early morning hours actually right now. So with that in mind, I just actually was just recording a video and I realized I wasn't even recording. So let's try this again. Jesus, man. Anyways, let's see. Let's go check out the Krown Chain application over here, which can be found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see? We do see that open interest still hanging around that $2.15 billion marker. We haven't established a new range with that, so I don't really have too much to make out of that at the current moment in time. Bitcoin dominance basically hanging in the same range as well. Still long term, looking for a reversal there. And we probably will reference it once again on the weekends. I think I'll be just only saving that on the weekends, mostly because it doesn't really change all that often. And realistically, we're kind of looking at, months of price action there anyways. And the fear and greed index also coming down about 4 points from a 56 to a 52. Even though Bitcoin actually did even hit the top side of the short-term range. I mean, it hit both the bottom side and the top side of the short-term range yesterday, to be fair. But coming down 4 points nonetheless. Anyways, going on over here into our data tab, what do we see? Global funding rate is pretty much par for the course, 0.01%. Nothing really to make out of that. And the futures premium on spot price action still more or less steady here. So it seems to me like market makers are cool with this range right now. Anyways, going over here into the actual charts themselves. And what do we see? Once a fucking again, what do we have? A test to both the top side and the bottom side of the range, almost in the same dildo too, right? Here's your 11,500 region. Here's your 11,300-ish region. What happens? Sell the 11,500 region, buy the 11,300 region. Now, I did say yesterday that I would be looking for continuation if we did take off the 14th of October's high, which was 11,550. That actually did happen yesterday. But this is why using WIX as continuation, does imply or doesn't imply as much certainty with it. Technically speaking, I probably would have, if I was awake, I probably actually would have played this one looking for a move back up to about 11.7 or 11.8. Didn't quite get there, about $50 shy of that. So yeah, still not good enough. And what happens now? We go back into the range essentially. So 11.3 and 11.5 still very much relevant until we get a 4-hour total closure above or below that region. We don't really have a resolution here, but the same sort of targets wouldn't be implied, of course. Any sort of a 4-hour total closure above, I guess technically more like 11.5. What is this area right here? 11.540-ish region, 11.550. Yes, I'd be looking for a continuation back up here towards 11.8 and probably beyond. Over time, 12,000 would not even 12,000, but 12,100 would very likely be implied after that. Maybe over a little bit of time. And to the downside, same sort of things implied here as well. 11.3 breaking with any sort of a 2-hour any sort of a 2-hour or 4-hour total closure not only breaks the range but also destroys our current higher low that Bulas would be preying on for right here, and would initiate targets back down to the $11,000 base. If you want to be super specific, $11,050 right there, of which I'd be looking for a short-term bounce. That's the big one though. I don't really get long-term bearish until Bitcoin breaks below this region, below that, again, 11,050-ish region, preferably on a 12-hour daily. Does a 4-hour get it? Probably yes, actually. Also would destroy the 0.5 fib right here too, and probably imply a move all the way back down to the 786 at the very least at about 10.5. And personally speaking, I do think that we'd actually see continuation from that price point all the way back down to $10,000 low over time. But of course, one thing before the next. And right now, Bitcoin once again bouncing off the 11,300-ish region. I did not take this trade right here. I also did not take this trade yesterday right here as well. This range is a little bit too tight for me to feel comfortable trading the range as it is, mostly because I do believe that we're just so close to an actual break on this. The reason why I say that is because historical volatility percentile on the 4-hour is starting to really increase here. We're actually seeing it get above the moving average right now. So the expansion phase is in progress. And could this expansion phase actually lead to the break at this range? Yes, I do think so, actually. So keep an eye on this right now because this likely does get resolved. I actually think I was going to say today and tomorrow, but tomorrow being a weekend, probably unlikely. Today, very likely. By the time that CMEs open up on Sunday, also very likely as well. If we're still trading the same range on Saturday, I'd probably just watch, not really make too much out of it. But yes, as it is right now, is lining up for that, and it is saying time to pay attention. Do see 4-hour Stokes a little bit under pressure right here, getting stopped at the neutral zone, but technically not confirmed as of right now. What's more important is actually the 4-hour RSI getting a clear rejection from the bullish control zone here and back down below the exponential, likely to base upon the bearish control zone once again. Doesn't necessarily mean or imply that it's going to move in there, but let's go through the lower term time frames to kind of see exactly what is on the menu right now. Yeah, we see the same thing on 3-hour historical volatility volatility percentile as well, looking like it does want to have a little bit of an explosive phase right here. Could also fit a trend line in there too, but I wouldn't feel as confident with it, because this going back to like 10th of October, this doesn't really speak towards anything on the price action, does it? Well, I guess it would get this whole sort of consolidation right here. Let's just kind of play around with it. I don't really put too much weight on this right now. Typically when I do see these sorts of things, it should be very, very obvious. In this case right here, it would imply that we probably do come to the culmination of this current move when this area is hit, but I'm not really, it's not really looking like that. You really want to see something that's more obvious there, and that's just not the case of what we have. So I think I'd actually back away from making a statement like that and instead go on and check out momentum also to see if there's anything obvious there. We do see 3-hour Stokes actually looking a little bit tired, similar to the 4-hour as well. Technically not crossing down, but hinting at a cross to the downside. And again, 3-hour RSI actually leading into the 4-hour RSI as it does get a, as it does, can't speak, as it does break below the exponential here as well. Probably going to base upon somewhere in this region right now as well too. So does that come alongside a break of the 11.3 region to the downside? That's not implied. I want to be very specific with that. But it does imply that we're going to, but it does imply that we're going to test there, of which we kind of already did. So fair enough. There it is. There's the fucking play. Looking at the 2-hour, what do we see as well? We do see 2-hour Stokes looking like they want to cross down. In fact, they certainly will cross down with any sort of a closure below about 11.4 region, and also going to initiate some hidden bearish divergence. Although for this one, I would say that this one's probably not going to be playable, unless if you took this signal right here, then actually yes, that one was very much playable, because we did come down from about 11.5 to where we are right now. So fair enough. But more importantly, with historic volatility percentile on both the 4-hour, 3-hour, and 2-hour, all kind of popping up above the moving average on it, it would suggest that yes, we're probably going to see a resolution here. And seeing as it is testing the downside right now, it does make me a little more skeptical with this. So fair enough. It's time to be paying attention once again. And so what do we see on the hourly? The hourly is already healthily headed down. Looks to me like it will very likely test the 200 simple and 200 exponential average right here, which is about $50 lower at about 11,250 to 11,260ish region, kind of where we put in a low yesterday. But again, until we get a 2-hour or 4-hour delta closure below that region, below 11.3, and would I feel comfortable using a 2-hour? Probably, yeah. Yes, 4 hours going to be better with it. Does a 2-hour get it? Probably does. But 4 hour technically would be the more verified way of going after it. But yeah, this is having a little bit of venom with it right now, as it does actually, as it does show volatility increasing. Wow, all momentum oscillators are headed to the downside. Here's your hourly RSI as well. Probably does get an initial bounce off this bearish control zone, but it doesn't look like the picture of health and fitness right now, dumping down about $200 as soon as I start this fucking video. So there you go. Anyways, let's go check out the medium-term timeframes. What do we see on the 12-hour right here? We do see, holy fuck, a nice little backfill right there. Probably does bounce up from this level as well. Again, being the 11,300-ish region, likely does just because it's the bottom side of the range. Anyways, I don't really have much to make out of it other than that, though. We do see 12-hour Stokes still headed south side, so we do see the combination of all the low-term timeframes plus medium-term timeframes on the same side right now, and I do believe that the daily was actually turning yesterday too. Let's see if that happened. Yes, indeed it did. So we actually have all momentum oscillators on all timeframes turning down. So you know what? This is actually starting to take a little more of a bearish look on this one. But I'd really want to see the weekly close here. I'm very hesitant to get bearish within this region. But hey, if it happens, it happens, I guess. Looking at 12-hour RSI, what do we see? Getting kicked out of the bullish control zone right here as well. Did have a little bit of hidden bullish divergence yesterday, but that already played out from 11.3 to 11.6 or 11.650. So what happens now? Not much to make out of that, but it would suggest that yes, we probably do spend a little bit more time filling this range out. Long term, as I've been saying, very constructive here, very good behavior, but that doesn't necessarily imply that the short term right here can't have a little bit of downside. In fact, it actually looks like it wants to have a little bit of downside, to be fair. Anyways, let's see. What about the daily here too? Daily coming from an extremely low read, actually expanding from literally a one read right here from the 4th of October. So we are likely looking at the resolution of this range and the greater range pretty damn soon. And what I mean by that, what I wanted to put into context here is just the fact that anytime that we've gotten this low and contracted for like a month or two, which seems to be par for the course on Bitcoin, it does lead into pretty damn explosive moves. This last one right here, very reminiscent of what we're doing right now when Bitcoin broke out in July from about $9,000 base all the way up to about $12,500. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to break out to the upside, when it gets that low. Obviously, we do have several examples where it does break out to the downside. I'm just going to go search out 2018 because that's the one that's at the tippy top in my mind. And yeah, this one right here, this one was actually a very aggressive one, precipitating that move back down from about 6,000 to 3,000. So as it is right now, Bitcoin testing the low side of the range, just like when it tests, the top side of the range. What's more likely to happen? It's more likely to actually, more likely to break, especially as volatility does start to, really perk up here. But as it is right now, I hold on to what I say, man. I hold on to or at least I hold on to the way that I trade here. And that is, this area is going to bounce it until it doesn't. Am I taking this trade right here? No, I'm not. Just like I didn't take this trade here yesterday as well. The next trade that I take is going to be the break of this range or playing on the periphery of the break of this range. So that'd mean, buying a scalp bounce somewhere around here or selling a scalp short somewhere right around here as well. But for the meantime, this range right here, it's so frothy and it's so intense that I really want to refrain from, from making any sort of decisions while we're kind of, still within it, as it just doesn't have the greatest risk reward in my opinion. Anyways, let's go over to the 2-day and 3-day and see how these ones are shaping up as well. 2-day actually did just do, oh wow, actually did, no, was that in there yesterday? Hold on, did we get a new 2-day yesterday? No, we get a new 2-day tonight. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I don't have much to make out of this. Would be a little more English towards the downside as well. We do see 2-day stocks getting way up there too. It's all traveling around, all slippery, sloppery. What do we see on 2-day RSI? Yep, we spoke about this the last few days. That first test in the bullish control zone likely to get pushed back. Be looking for a test back down to the exponential on this. How far does price action come down alongside with that? Maybe that that actually is your $11,000 tick right there. But still, I feel disingenuous saying that right now, because actually, funnily enough, believe it or not, I'm actually more or less bullish from this range, or at least if I had to call this right now. Now, keep in mind, no skin in the game. I'm not trading this, except for just like the long-term Bitcoin that I hold anyways. Like I hold it, no matter what, no matter whether it's coronavirus dump or whether it's like this fucking phenomenal, exuberant, irrational pump over here. I just hold it no matter what, so it just doesn't really mean anything. But as far as trading goes, no, not interested in this right now. I'm interested on the peripheries, not in this current exact area, which is starting to really shape up though, to be fair. Anyways, we are going to be looking at the weekly closure for CMEs. Oh, there we go. Uh-oh. Very bad Bitcoin. Very, very bad. She's been a very bad girl. Now she's coming all the way down to 12,250-ish region. I just want to see this on a lower term time frame. Would I be looking for another short-term bounce right here? Probably yes. But, with a little bit of failure right here, and a little bit of a closure right here as well, that's probably going to do it. Anyways, going over to the weekly, I do want to see what CMEs are looking like right now too, as CMEs likely do get the overall direction. And checking this out, on CMEs, we are going to get the weekly closure today at, I believe, 5 p.m. at Central Standard Time. We're not really getting too much from the weekly right now, actually, on CMEs. Obviously, above 11,750. Obviously, very, very bullish, coming back up towards about 12,500, but, we're quite far away from that right now. Sorry, Bitcoin Boolaws. To the downside, a little more obvious here too. Anywhere below 11,100 region likely does imply, another range being established between about 11,001 to all the way down to about 10.4. And I'd be looking for a test on, on spot price action, probably back down to the low 10,000s. 10.4 on CME futures probably equates to about 10.2 or 10.3 on spot price action. So keep that in mind. And yeah, Bitcoin's actually really celebrated to the downside right now. There is your dumpity dump. Let's see if we actually take out this last low right here too. That's 11,190 tick. We just got down to 11,212. This red dildo party is just getting started right now, actually, with all momentum also is pointed south side. This is looking nasty. Technically speaking, though, still want to see an actual break. I want to see a confirmed break of this range. Jesus Christ, man, this is really making everyone hold their breath, I'm guessing. But let's go see what the lower term timeframes look like on CMEs right here. Not so so healthy, not so hot right now. What do we see over here? A little bit of do we have bearish divergence there? Kind of, not really. I guess a little bit. Yeah, that is technically closing on a higher high, so fair enough. But move's already played out, to be fair, getting from about 11.6 all the way down to where we are right now, the bottom side of the range. Saying anything more than that, I don't really think is appropriate either. Do we see anything on the daily here? No, not really. Again, it's not really telling us anything that we already haven't said. So $11,100 to $11,000 even is just it's just a nice little base there if you are looking at the daily, but I don't really see anything of note right here. The weekly is what I keep a keen eye on. I want to see weekly Stokes start to turn to the upside, of which they will with any sort of closure here or higher. But there's a lot of trading left in the day to go. I'm curious what actually spot price action looks like on that. Yeah, it's doing the same thing here too, actually bouncing off or likely bouncing off of the weekly 10 simple right here as well. Does that get it or not? I mean, it doesn't really tell us that much though. What it will matter for is actually coming into next week, where we actually do have a doji little play right here, assuming that it closes something like this, where it has a wick to both sides. But we don't, I mean, it's a long day left to trade, so it's really not appropriate to making a call like that right now. So you know what? I think it would be a good idea to go check out traditional markets and see what they're doing in the early morning hours, because this one's going to be a lot more obvious. And just looking at the weekly here for NASDAQ, and also understanding the correlation between Bitcoin and traditional markets. Any sort of a NASDAQ closure above 12,000, I'm looking for new all-time highs, and I'd probably be looking for Bitcoin to work its way back up to 12,000. I'd feel a lot more confident saying that than looking at Bitcoin as it is right now. Bitcoin looks very bearish on the short-term timeframes. However, any sort of a closure below 12,000 doesn't necessarily imply that this one's doomed, but it would imply that we are going to come back down, probably back to about 11.5 region and play out a range there. So, big swaths of price action likely do move on from this pivot, similar to Bitcoin as well. Short term from NAS futures, I would be looking for this one to come back down to 11.750ish region. I think that was the same move that we looked at for yesterday, down to 11.750 and a bounce up. We got that, but the bounce up was unsuccessful, really, realistically, as it is right now. How does the daily look here too? Interesting. I'm curious what this looks like on regular NASDAQ, actually, like just symbol NDX. Do we have an island top in play? Kind of do, actually, in some ways, yes. Actually, yeah. You could definitely say that. Let's see what the weekly looks like here too. Looks a lot more bearish, actually. Fair enough. All right, let's go check out what SPY futures look like here too. Very similar, actually, to NASDAQ futures, in the same sort of play on the weekly as well. Any sort of a weekly closure above 3,500, and I would be looking for new all-time highs coming into next week and probably probably the week after, and probably drags Bitcoin back up to 12,000 as well. Or at the very least 11.8. But any sort of closure below there likely produces a range, and we do come back down next week actually and test around just under 3,400ish region. So a lot of very important long-term price action is going to be based off this right now, and it feels like we're still looking at about half of the piece of or we're looking at 3/4 of the piece of the pie, and I still need that last fourth in order to really feel like I got a good read on this price action. And well, I mean, this one right here does look bearish, to be fair. I mean, this is kind of hard price action to love right there if you want to be bullish, to be fair. But let's go look at our secondary charts and see if there's anything of note here too. 12-hour did come all the way down to the 20 simple, bouncing off there. Going to be quite likely. But here's the problem: 12-hour MACD is going to get a bearish cross right here. If that comes along the side of a 12-hour delta closure, especially below the 20 simple, but even below this last prior low right here at about 11.250, or let's just call it even 11.3, that's going to be something. That's going to be something, and probably does produce an actual break to the downside of the range. You very likely will see the 20 simple break after that, and back down below 11,000 you likely go. But for right now, as you can see, it is bouncing up, and it's a little bit too early to be judging this one. Still got another 7.5 hours about to trade it to trade it up. So I think it would be a little bit unwise to make a judgment on that one right now. 4-hour, what do we see here on the secondary chart? Testing the bottom side of the 200 bands. Technically not a break just yet, but any sort of a closure below the bottom side 200 bands, this is going to look like an actual breakout. I mean, look at how tight these babies are right here. Now, admittedly, this is a 4 hour, but with the 4 hour, we probably do get the resolution anyways. So if anything right now, I think that this is the most compelling read that I've seen on the chart. Any sort of a closure below 11.3, where is it exactly? It's actually like 11.275, we'll call it. But I'm just going to still refer to it as 11.3 just because it's easier to say and same range essentially. Any sort of a closure below there on the 4 hour. And yeah, this is likely going to lead into like a full-on breakout. Also going to break the 20 simple on this, and the Trollender bands will open up, and very, 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 very likely, another move down to about $11,000 base. I'll be looking for a short-term bounce there, and then we'll come back and probably analyze it after that, or maybe just fucking red dildos all the way down to 11,000 or 10,000. That would not be quite delightful for a Friday closure, now would it? Anyways, 4 hour MACD. What do we see? Not really anything too much of interest here either, kind of telling us what we already know. And 4 hour DMI ADX is seeing the DMI minus get dominant right here, but the ADX is not strengthening, so it's not really giving us a full signal just yet. Maybe there's something on the 12 hour. No, not really. If anything, it would be more on the Bula-ish side, but 12 hour DMI plus still dominant, but it is curtailing this signal right here. I'd be looking for it to come all the way back down to the threshold signal, somewhere around 22 to 23 actually. ADX still is strong, but I imagine that probably in the next tick you are going to see that go back to regular gray. And what about the daily here too? Daily's very interesting to me. Very, very interesting. We're still above all major moving averages. And the top side Trollender band is kind of getting, or was getting our high yesterday, 11,650-ish region. But what does it tell us right here? Is there anything of relevance that we're not getting from the other charts? No, I think that this one's a little bit too much of a laggard here. Daily MACD is loosening in script, obviously, but we don't really have any cross to be looking at. We don't have any, anything to base off of price action as it is right now. DMI is, it's coming down. Yes, I'd kind of be looking at this same thing as a 12 hour. Technically speaking, the ADX is still strengthening, but it doesn't feel like that. Definitely doesn't feel like that. So for me, this probably is a good signal that it's just best to wait for today's daily total closure. If we do get a 4 hour closure above or below, the ranges that we already set out, that would probably be good enough as well, or 12 hours preferably as well. But looking at it get bought up right here too. What happens? It's still, still just looks like a range to me, just testing both sides in the same fucking 4 hour dildo. What's new? It's Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin land. It's why you either love it or hate it. But for a trader, it's quite the paradise here. As this is a fucking $200, or is this $200 or $300 range? No, it's $300 range. We went all the way down to 11.2. Quite nice indeed. Okay, cool. So with that in mind, let's go back to our regular charts over here. Let's see if there's anything obvious with the altcoins. What about Mr. Butyrol? Mr. Butyrol all the way back down to about 363 on that last move. Technically has not confirmed a downtrend here just yet. Still needs to close a 4 hour dildo below 366.5 to actually confirm that. As it is right now, bouncing along with Bitcoin. Is there anything obvious here though that we're seeing here that's not shown on Bitcoin that could help further our bias boners? If anything, actually, I'm looking for a bounce off this level. Probably back up towards 370-ish region, or just above 370, like 371, 372. Daily momentum oscillators are pointed south side, and we are meeting this trend line right here as well. Getting the last few highs from August, which was this one right here and this one right here, and once again with this guy right here. So while it does probably produce a short-term bounce off this region, maybe back up a little bit, slightly north of 370, does it give us anything else other than that? Not really. 4 hour RSI looks the exact same as Bitcoin, so I suspect that we're probably not going to get anything of note right now. What about the weekly here too? What's the weekly looking like? Weekly is looking like a rejection as it is right now, but still too early to really call this with another couple days of trading left to go. Anything on the 12 hour specifically here too? 12 hour looks a lot more obviously bearish actually, with momentum oscillators all headed down. Yeah, more things on this market do look bearish right here. So I'm gonna look pretty fucking silly for yesterday saying that Bitcoin getting a 4 hour total closure, or sorry, not closure, but about a tick above our last range high at 11,550 likely does produce that continuation to 11.7. We almost got, didn't really quite get there. No, I don't think that I can say that that's close enough actually. 11,650 is still $50 below, and that was supposed to be like a rather quick move. So yes, I will certainly be wrong about that one. But on the other side, this is why closures hold a lot more weight, and at the end of the day, no closures above 11,550 were had. And what happens now? Well, still range with a slight downside twist, actually, seeing as the Bulas got their chance to test the upside. Now the Bears get their chance to test the downside. And after that, what happens? Well, probably some more sideways. Probably some more fucking sideways. Anyways, do we have anything else to be looking at that is of note right now? We're already 24 minutes into this bitch, and maybe that's already long enough. We could check out the tech sector, as Bitcoin likes to trade with it quite a bit. Still look good to me, actually, here. Looks good for a bounce back up to 123. Does say to not get so inherently bearish on Bitcoin as it is right now. What about triple Qs? Same thing. I'd be looking for this one to bounce up a little bit more to the upside. What about England? England's going down in the fucking dirt. Sorry, England, but seriously, what is it? FTSE? Terrible. Very, 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 very bad. NY probably bounced back up to 13,200-ish region. Russell, same. Wow, really strong response on Russell. Actually, I think that we've even hit our target to the upside at 1680. Did we get there? No, 1650 so far. Pretty close though. I do think that this one has a little more upside here too. So I'm hesitant to get bearish on Bitcoin right now, mostly because of what I see in traditional markets, saying that we're probably in a bounce area. With that in mind, though, the futures for traditional markets is not looking the same way. So futures for NAS looks like wants to come back down short term, but I'd still be looking for a bounce at 11,750-ish region. So keep that in mind. Right now, we're only seeing this action in Bitcoin markets. Let's go check out Link. What's Link doing? Link at 92,000 Satoshis. What do we see here? Or what sort of buys? Or do we even want to be looking at the Bitcoin parent? Let's look at the dollar parent, actually. All right, yeah. Let's see what this is going on Binance right here. Same sort of range. I'd probably be looking for a bounce off the 21, somewhere around $9.5. Doesn't really imply resolution just yet. It does, can't really make too much more out of this one. Closure below the 21, yeah, we got problems all the way down to about $6.5, but that's still far away, and the weekly closure is still a couple days away. I'd be a little more hesitant to actually make a call on that. And it's also interesting to see that this one's not really producing the same sort of move as Bitcoin. Momentum oscillators though do say be very cautious here. Daily Stochs down, daily RSI is wanting break below the exponential. Very similar read here on the daily RSI though to Bitcoin spot, however, as long-term constructive, short-term bearish, yes. So, if it does play out a little bit of a downside move, probably back down to about $8.5 region, and I'd be looking for another bounce there to be fair. At least short term bounce at about, what is this area right here? Yeah, about 8.5, right around that last prior low would be good as well. So all within the same region, good confluence. And what else do we have to look at? What about SPY? Not SPY futures, but just regular old SPY. Yeah, it looks nothing like the futures actually on it. The futures look obviously bearish. The way that it closed the daily yesterday, this is actually very good right here. I'm hesitant to get I'm hesitant to get bearish on Bitcoin just based off of these off of these. To be honest with you, man, yeah, it is testing the downside of the range right now, but I feel like this actually could be a trap area right here. I need to see a closure below this region. If that happens, yeah, I'm on the same side, and I'll put some money at at work. But for right now, no, there's just too much other things going on. Do we see anything on BNB versus Bitcoin parent over here? Coming down, getting boo-caked once again. But yeah, actually, this one probably does come down longer term back towards not pointing out 313 region. What about the weekly here too? Yeah, it looks a little more under pressure as well. But still, I don't think that's as obvious a chart as the other ones that we've been looking at. Is there any ones that we could check out? Maybe Monero. I'm looking for something that has like a very obvious signal, which we have just not seen yet. Monero, we have a little bit of bearish divergence on the daily. It has that move already played out though. I don't even think that's really that crazy of a bearish divergence anyways. Weekly is very good actually. I'd be looking for the weekly to come back down towards about 115, but I'd be looking for a bounce at 115, and weekly is actually very, 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 very good here. I'd be bullish on it long term. So if I'm going off of anything, it's actually Monero. Monero is the most obvious chart right now. Short term would be down though, to be fair. It would be down, but I would be looking at this as a major opportunity at 115. In fact, how far did we get down on this weekly already? Yeah, 123, but not really getting much other than that. Just Ripple for shits and giggles. Nope, looks like shit once again. Looks like shit, Captain. Maybe back down to about 22 and a half. I mean, I really haven't even spent any time like looking at these other ones in a while. What about BNB? Kind of double topping right there too. Maybe a little more to the downside at about 28.8, but I would be looking for a bounce there as well. Short term, weekly looks constructive, looks good. I don't have any problems with this chart here. On a weekly, on a short term, yeah, a little bit of downside, but the higher term timeframes for a lot of these ones actually still look okay. So I'm basically saying the same shit that I've been saying all throughout this week. 4-hour closure below 11.3 or above 11.550. Then we have a resolution to the downside, would imply targets back down to about 11,000. Short-term bounce there. If we do break 11,000, big problems, big problems. But I'd expect that probably doesn't happen at least until next week, if it is even going to happen to begin with. To the upside, a little more obvious here. If Bitcoin does break to the upside, I'd be looking for a quick move to about 11.8 and a continuation implied actually all the way back up towards this liquid zone right here at about 12.1 to about 12 and $50. And realistically at that point, you got to be looking at the weekly, and that probably sets up and well, then you got to be looking at all the higher term timeframes. Maybe this is a good thing to end on as we do. Are we getting close to the end of the month here? No, we're like halfway in the month. But looking at the monthly right here, still long-term good as far as I'm concerned. Bi-monthly, I think, really tells a picture, and the quarterly also very healthy as well. Bi-monthly still in an uptrend, very, very nice. Momentum oscillators all on the same side. So, long-term, I still do like this. Short-term, do we play to move down to maybe even 11,000 or maybe even 10,000? Possible, yes, but I do think that it's important to reflect on the higher term timeframes here. And then, of course, the quarterly, which just set in, and the month of October. I mean, I don't really think that Bitcoin's going down below like 9,000 anytime soon. Yeah, looking at that as the last quarterly open. If anything, this to me, yes, it could play out some nice downside moves here, but long term, I'm still actually pretty damn bullish on this actually. So again, as always, have to differentiate between the short term, medium term, high term, and in macro. And in this case, right here, we got some short-term downside. I think that, the obvious plays have already, on that one have already played out. Could that lead into some medium and long-term downside? Yes, absolutely. Below 11.3, medium-term downside. Below 11,000, long-term downside. Below 9,000, macro reversal. Then you got problems. Then you got big bad problems. But for right now, still holding its own. I'd be looking for this one to play out a little bit of a range here, and basically the same things kind of implied, that we've been saying throughout this week. So with that said, I'd like to wish you the best. I'll be back on later with some more Forex analysis, which has been way more fun recently, by the way, because it's like moves every fucking day. So with that said, take care, and until next time.